And in this video, we are going to be creating the very first section of our website. So that's going to be this top container here. So we've got this navbar here, and we've got a logo, and we've got some links here. So let's visualize this so we know how to set it up in our structure of our page. So we've got a navbar, which we know is going to be a module because navbars can be used in multiple places on our landing page if we choose. And we also know that we're going to be putting this navbar in some type of a container. So we can think of a container, since it's like breaking out sections, it's going to be a layout. So let's go back over to our text editor, and we're going to be creating two things here. So first, let's open up your layout folder here, and we are going to create a new partial. So create a new partial here, and we're going to call this containers. All right, get the Sass extension there. And then while we're at it, let's be sure that we're importing this. And this one, it's containers. Okay, we've got that set up, and now we've got to do the same thing in our modules. We're going to add our navbar. So underscore, and we'll call this navbar. So we've got our partial there, and then we're going to import it. And this is going to be navbar. Perfect. All right, so we're all set up to start designing. So let's check out our HTML and see how we have this navbar structured. So we've got the body here, and we've created a header, and it is a nav header, and then we can see that we have our container. And then we've built some rows and columns in here to hold our image. And then we have this nav menu with the nav list, and then we've got the nav items. And then the header is going to close. So let's go ahead and dive into the layouts and build the first container layout property here. All right, so go ahead and grab the container class, and then let's add some padding to this. So let's do a padding left of 15 pixels. We'll go ahead and do a padding right of 15 pixels. And then we're going to do the same thing with the margin, except we're going to set it to auto. And then we'll do the margin right to auto. And to assure that our containers stack upon one another, we're going to give this a display of block. So now we've set up a default container class that we can use throughout our website. Now, earlier we talked about smacks. We talked about in our layouts to use the # to call IDs. Remember, these are just a set of guidelines, and personally, I don't want to create IDs for my containers. Use these guidelines and interpret it to your own personal use. And so that's why I've gone ahead and inserted a class here. So we've got that set up, and now let's go ahead and set up our navbar. So dive into our modules, and we're going to open up the navbar. All right, so the first class that we're going to grab is the nav header. All right, so go ahead and grab that class. And then we're going to add some styles to this. We're going to give it a padding, and we're going to go 0, 0, 10 pixels. So 0 from the top, 0 left and right, but we're going to give it some padding here at the bottom. And then let's just give it a background color, and we're just going to grab our class, the white here. So there we go. Now we're going to give it a white background. Now, what we're going to do with this structure, just like in our HTML, how we have this structured hierarchy, remember, we can use the same concept, the same principle here in our Sass. So right underneath that, we've got a container that we're going to grab, and we're going to manipulate this container a little bit differently than the default properties that we added in our layouts. We are going to add a padding of 10, 15, and 0. So 10 from the top, 15 from the left and right, and 0 at the bottom. And then we're going to give it the margin right of auto, and then we'll give it a margin left of auto. All right, cool. So now we've got that set up, and we're going to even nest a little bit deeper, because now we have to hit the navigation menu and all of those list items. All right, so now we want to work with the navigation menu. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and then we're going to start fresh right here. So we're going to grab the nav menu, and then we are going to float everything in it right. it's going to be font large, and it already brings it up for us here because it's available. So it's going to be a font large, and then we're going to make sure that the margin and the padding is 0 on this. We want to add margin and padding to the link items itself, but not the list that's going to contain those. And then after we do the padding, let's go ahead and get rid of the list style on this so that it doesn't have any bullet points or underlines. Now, you're probably wondering what this looks like. So let's go ahead and find out. So open up your terminal, and then let's add that watcher to our file here. So wherever you saved your starter template, go ahead and open it up in your terminal and simply start the watcher to CSS. So the Sass -- watch our Sass directory into our CSS directory. All right, and so far so good. I actually didn't have any errors. That's pretty cool. And then let's come here, and I think it's this one is our starter. Let's go ahead and refresh this. And cool, we've started adding some style here. So we've got our navigation bar here. We've got all of our items over here to the right. So let's continue working with this so that we can get everything lined up and get the font color to look correctly. All right, so right under our list, let's go ahead and directly work with those nav items. All right, currently they're stacking upon one another, and we want them to stack in a row. And we can simply do this with a display of inline block. This way it keeps them in a block element, but it's going to line them up in a row. All right, and then we can go ahead and add a margin of 0. And then we're going to do a vertical line to the top. All right, so the next thing in is we've got the nav list items here, the actual nav list items itself. So these nav anchors, we're going to give a display of block. And then we're going to add some padding to this. And this is what's going to help spread them out a little bit. So let's give it 5 pixels, top and bottom. And then we're going to give it 10 pixels from the left and the right. Next, we're going to take away that underline, and we're going to use the text decoration, none. All right, we don't want these to look like links. And we're going to add a color here. And let's go ahead and add our variable for this, and we're going to use the base dark. Cool, so now we've added some color to those links. And we want to give this a border to help spread these things out. So we're going to do a border of 1 pixel, solid, and we're going to make this transparent. All right, cool. So we've got that set up for us, and then we're going to take these links and we're going to do a text transform on them. And we're going to do uppercase. That way it takes all of our text and it just makes it uppercase for us. Self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and add the ampersand, and we're going to add a hover to this. And let's make this we're going to change the text color, and we're going to change it to red. All right, and remember, when we use the ampersand, all this simply does is grabs the parent of the style setup, the style block that you're using here. So instead of having to call the class the nav-a, we can simply, because Sass is awesome, grab the ampersand and just do a hover with the color red. Now, let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. So I'm going to refresh this, and we didn't have any changes. Let's check our terminal, and I don't have any errors. So what's going on here? Well, let's dive back into the navbar and let's breadcrumb this style that we've just created. So we have at the top our nav menu. All right, we know everything is floating right. All of those links are on the right side. All right, we know that the font size is large, and we know that we removed the list style because there's no dots on that. So we know that this section here is working. What it looks like isn't working is these nav items. So it's supposed to have a display of inline block, which is going to put it in a row for us, and that's not happening for us. And then because this is breaking, it's breaking this. So what I'm thinking is we probably misspelled the class, and we can double check that by jumping into the index. So we have our nav menu, the nav menu list, and the nav items. Oh, it's nav item. I believe I added an S here, and I did. So cool. So I'm going to go ahead and save that now. Now, that's a really important lesson to learn here, is sometimes when your styles aren't showing up and the terminal says, hey, everything has compiled correctly here, try checking out the nesting that you've done here in your Sass. And we know that something broke right in the middle here. So if I go back to the page and refresh it, there we have it. We have created the nav bar. So that's